All right, let's get into it. Today we're digging into Mark Manson's book, Everything is Fucked. And this one goes straight for the jugular, challenging the one thing we all think we need to survive, hope. But what if hope isn't the cure? What if it's the problem? Manson doesn't pull any punches, does he? He kicks things off with what he calls the uncomfortable truth. He says, imagine this written on your coffee cup in the morning. The point is, deep down, we all know we're just kind of cosmic specks. And our careers, our dreams, our whole sense of who we are, it's all just a super complicated story we tell ourselves to keep from freaking out about that fact. It's a dark place to start, for sure, but you have to start here to get where he's going. But then, right as you're staring into that bleakness, Manson hits you with the story of Witold Pilecki. This was a Polish war hero who, get this, volunteered to get arrested and thrown into Auschwitz. Why? So he could start a mutiny from the inside. It's just insane. For Manson, this is what a hero is. It's not just being brave. It's the power to create hope where there is absolutely zero reason for it to exist. And right there, that's the core paradox of the whole book. Pilecki's hope, it led to unbelievable heroism. But Hitler's hope for a master race, the Soviets' hope for a worker's paradise, those hopes fueled some of the worst horrors in history. So if hope powers both the greatest good and the greatest evil, what does that really say about hope itself? It forces you to ask a really uncomfortable question. What if hope is actually the disease we're all trying to cure? That paradox leads us straight into a massive contradiction we're all living through right now. Manson calls it the paradox of progress. The thing is, we're safer, wealthier, and healthier than any other time in human history. By pretty much every objective measure, things are better than ever. And yet, we're apparently in the middle of a hopelessness epidemic. Yeah, when you look at the data, it gets even weirder. Violence has been trending down for centuries. Extreme poverty is dropping like a rock. But then you see these other charts. In the developed world, things like depression and anxiety are climbing. Loneliness is on the rise. And our trust in, well, in everything, the government, the media, each other, it's cratering. It's like the better things get on the outside, the more we fall apart on the inside. So why is this happening? Well, according to the book, hope isn't just a fuzzy feeling, it's a structure. And it needs three things to stand up. First, a sense of control, that you can actually affect your own life. Second, you gotta believe in something bigger than yourself, some value that's worth fighting for. And third, you need a tribe, a community that believes in it with you. Manson's whole argument is that our modern world is systematically chipping away at all three of these pillars. To really get why, we have to pop the hood on our own psychology. And Manson gives us this great metaphor to work with: the consciousness car. It's his way of explaining why we so often do things that we know are bad for us. So inside your head car, you've got two passengers. You've got the thinking brain. He's the logical one, the accountant. He does the math, he makes spreadsheets, he speaks in full sentences. And then you've got the feeling brain. This one is all raw emotion, gut feelings, impulse. It doesn't do language, it just feels. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now. So, who do you think is driving this car? For centuries, we thought the thinking brain was in charge, steering our wild emotions. But Manson says, nope. Modern science shows it's the other way around. Your feeling brain has the keys, and it's flooring it toward whatever feels good. And your thinking brain, he's in the passenger seat, not navigating, but more like a frantic PR guy, drawing up these elaborate maps to justify why, yes, driving to get that donut at 2 a.m. was a brilliant and rational decision. And this feeling brain, it runs on a really simple operating system, which Manson calls Newton's first law of emotion. The idea is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite emotional reaction. Someone hurts you, it creates a moral gap, and you feel this powerful urge for justice, for payback. Someone does something nice for you, a gap opens, and you feel this need to be nice back. Our entire emotional world is just this constant, frantic scramble to balance these moral ledgers. Okay, so this internal setup, this emotional clown car with a lawyer riding shotgun, it makes us total suckers for any system on the outside that promises to give our feelings some meaning and direction. And to manage all that internal chaos, we build these things that Manson calls religions. In the book, Manson lays out this satirical how to start a cult for dummies guide. And it's kind of brilliant because it shows you the playbook. First, find some people who feel lost and tell them, hey, it's not your fault. Then give them one big idea, a God value to rally around. To really bring them together, give them a common enemy to hate. Create some rituals to make it all feel real, and then you promise them paradise, but you actually just keep them on a treadmill of guilt so they never leave.
Now, when Manson says religion, you got to understand he's not just talking about God or churches. He's talking about any system we use to organize our hope. So you have spiritual religions, the classic ones. You have ideological religions, think capitalism, communism, even intense environmentalism. And then you have interpersonal religions, where we put all our hope into other people, whether it's the one in a romance, a political messiah, or our favorite football team.
So if all of our big systems of hope are built on this really shaky, often self-destructive foundation, what's the move? Are we just doomed? Well, this is where Manson pulls out a surprise guest, the 18th century philosopher Immanuel Kant. He thinks Kant has the antidote.
Kant had this one single rule that he thought could fix everything. He called it the formula of humanity. And it sounds complicated, but when you boil it down, it's pretty simple. Always treat a person, the thinking, feeling, conscious part of them, as the goal itself. Never, ever treat a person like a tool you use to get something else you want.
Manson breaks this down with a perfect and kind of hilarious example, a burrito. Okay, so driving your car is a means to an end. The end is the burrito. Totally fine. The car doesn't have feelings. But if you lie to your friend to borrow money for that same burrito, you've just used their trust, their consciousness as a tool to get your snack. According to Kant, that right there, that's the root of all evil.
And this Kantian idea, it completely flips our modern definition of freedom on its head. We think freedom is about having more options, endless shows to stream, hundreds of cereals at the store. Manson calls this #fake freedom. It's just a buffet of options that makes us anxious. Real freedom, he argues, is actually the opposite. It's choosing what you're willing to give up. It's self-limitation and commitment, because that's the only way to find something with real depth and meaning. And this brings us to the final, and honestly, the most mind-bending part of the whole argument. Manson asks, what happens when our search for the perfect system of hope finally works? What happens when we actually succeed in building a God? So check this out. In 2018, Google built an AI called AlphaZero. Its job was to learn how to play chess. Now, AlphaZero could calculate about 80,000 moves a second. Sounds crazy fast, right? Well, in the world of supercomputers that play chess, that's actually kind of slow. You see, its opponent was this program called Stockfish, the undisputed world champion. Stockfish could crunch through 70 times million positions every second. I mean, on paper, this isn't even a contest. It's like a bicycle racing a fighter jet. But here's where the story gets insane. Google's AI wasn't programmed with centuries of human chess strategy. It was just programmed to learn. So after just 9 hours of teaching itself to play chess, it played Stockfish in a 100-game match. And the number of games it lost? 0. Not a single one. It didn't just beat the most powerful chess program on Earth, it destroyed it with moves no human had ever even thought of. This quote from a chess grandmaster just says it all. It wasn't just a better machine. It felt like a completely different, superior kind of intelligence. It wasn't just thinking faster. It was thinking better, in ways we can't even begin to understand. It was, as Manson suggests, a peek at the next religion. And that leaves us with the ultimate, terrifying question. If we create a superintelligent AI that could solve everything, war, hunger, climate change, but it operates on a logic that's totally alien to us, a logic beyond good and evil, what is that? Is that our salvation? Or is it just the ultimate cop-out, the final, perfect, and maybe most destructive form of hope, where we finally just hand the keys to the consciousness car over to a machine and let ourselves off the hook forever?